Get free tech advice for your business from O2 Gurus. Search O2 Business for more. This is a Nokia Lumia 830. It's got a large HD display, a metal body, and a high-resolution camera. Feels really nice and sturdy. This is an Apple iPhone 6. It's got a large HD display, metal body, high-resolution camera. Feels really nice and sturdy. The Nokia Lumia 830 costs around £300 odd offline. The Apple iPhone 6 costs, well, double that. If you wanted to go for the highest capacity version, way more than double that. But why? Well, we're going to talk about all the differences, all the similarities, and indeed whether you'd be better served spending £300 on a smartphone than nigh on £600. We're going to start off by talking about the design, and the iPhone 6 is better for people with smaller hands. If we put them side by side, you can see the size is pretty insignificant as far as the height difference goes, but the Nokia Lumia has sharper corners which make it that little bit harder to reach the top side of the screen. The screen is also 5 inches by contrast to 4.7 inches, so that little bit of extra just makes that little bit of extra reach a little bit harder. Now, as far as the actual in-hand sensation goes of both, the Nokia Lumia 830 is actually easier to pick up because of those flat sides. You've got something very, very tangible to grip onto, whereas the rounded corners of the iPhone may make it look a little bit more curvaceous and sultry, and indeed look significantly thinner than it actually is. If we put them side by side, you can see it isn't actually much thinner. It's about 1 millimeter thinner, but it feels much thinner than that. And that's down to the design. Apple are masters of design and have minimized the in-hand impact of their iPhone 6. Now we're going to take it one by one as far as talking about individual design elements goes. And you can see on the front of the Lumia, you've got that HD display. Now this is 720p. The pixel count, so PPI, is in the 290 to 300 mark. So it's going to be lower than that of the iPhone. We can pull that in closer to frame. It's still an LCD display though, not an OLED display, so you're not getting a pentile bittiness to it. You've got a front-facing 1 megapixel camera and an in-call speaker. Down at the base are 3 capacitive buttons. They are off-screen, so the whole screen is there, taking advantage of that user interface. As far as the right-hand side goes, volume rocker, power button, and a 2-stage camera button. One advantage of the Lumia, you'll be able to fire up your camera significantly quicker. Just press that button, whether the phone's off or whether it's on, it will still launch the camera. The camera is also something that we're going to come on to a little later. With manual controls out of the box, the Lumia could well be for you in that respect too. At the base, no buttons whatsoever, neither on the left-hand side, but up at the top, 3.5mm headphone jack and a micro USB connector. On the flip side, a removable back cover underneath which sits a 2200 milliamp battery. There is a 10 megapixel camera with optical image stabilisation on there, and you've got a flash as well, available in a range of colours: green, orange, black. We've got the white one. Supports wireless charging too, which is pretty neat, so just plonk it on a key wireless charger and away you go. Now it's the iPhone's turn. We really haven't been a fan of iPhones in the past, only really because massive hands and tiny screens don't go together. The iPhone 6 and 6 Plus are the first ones that we could really use as our primary smartphones. As far as the 6 goes, you can see on the front of it is that front-facing camera. You've also got an in-call speaker and ambient light sensor, etc. Screen, not quite as high resolution as Android flagships, but still higher res than the Lumia 830 at 326 ppi. It's also an LCD panel, IPS tech, fantastic viewing angles as you can see. Below the screen is a home button which doubles up as a fingerprint scanner, which works brilliantly. On the right hand side, you've got that power button, a nano SIM card slot. Down at the base, my lightning connector. You've got a loudspeaker which is way too easy to cover up, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. On the left hand side, a set of volume buttons and a lock toggle. Up at the top, nothing at all of note, but on the flip side, you have an NFC strip. It's worth noting the Lumia also has NFC. NFC strip, 8 megapixel camera and true tone flash. 1 flash cool, 1 flash warm in order to achieve accurate flash white balance. Apple insignia, and that is about that. So yeah, like we said, as far as the in-hand sensation goes, the Apple iPhone 6 is more subtle, more soft. It doesn't feel as stark and imposing in the hand as the Lumia 830. The 830 also feels significantly more masculine, has more of a presence, although like we said, it is easier to handle and pick up thanks to those flatter sides. Both of them though, metal bodies, feel very expensive and rich. If we take a look at those displays, we can just pull them in side by side so you can get an idea. We haven't got the same image up here, which would have been ideal, but you should still be able to make out the relative detail across both as we thumb through the user interfaces, opening up folder to create transitions and jumping back. Two pretty transition heavy UIs. Speaking of the UIs, we might as well talk about that now. And you've got iOS 8 and Windows Phone 8.1. Windows Phone 8.1 has been enhanced in a couple of ways. Pull down notifications tray. You've also got some quick toggles up at the top, and you've got the start menu, and on the right hand side your folder list. That's really still the crux of it. You can do a couple of cool things. You can have folders in a recent update as well. And as you can see, our background is giving way to this really nice wallpaper, which you can change quite easily just jumping into the settings. As far as what we love about the UI goes, and the OS in general, is its simplicity. Two menus is really not that hard to get your head around. Indeed, we give a Windows Phone to people, they generally get it in no time flat. iOS isn't much more complicated, but we'll show you there are a lot more menus to get your head around on it. If we were to jump into those settings, we can very easily see to change the whole look and feel of your phone, you can just swap out your accent color, swap out your background from light to dark, just like that. And we can also change our background photo really easily. So we can open up our backgrounds, grab a background right there, change what part of the photo we're using, and our home screen is a little bit more sunny and meadowy. As far as what we don't like about the OS, it's the eternal scrolling lists. What we showed you in the settings was just a fraction of it. You've got, as you can see, long lists. The keyboard on here is really good, but iOS has just added the functionality to swap out your keyboards for third-party keyboards like SwiftKey. What's been great about that is your third-party data, like all your keyboard history, has been transferred from Android, if you're an Android user, to the iOS app. We'd love to see something like that in Windows Phone, although like we said, the Windows Phone keyboard is pretty decent and it does support swipe input, so it was a step ahead of where iOS was prior. As far as what else you can do, you can customize your wallpaper. Microsoft loads a bunch of apps of their own on here, weather, and you've got also fitness applications, Bing related apps, and Nokia makes it all a little bit better by including offline satellite navigation and mix radio, which gives you free offline playlists out of the box, which is very cool. Definitely, as far as value adds go, the Lumia 830 probably wins. If you like paying for stuff though, and you want a really premium experience, you may well prefer iOS, which is unsurprising given the fact that this phone is almost double as expensive as that one. Now talking about iOS, we can see we've actually got more menus. iOS used to be super simple. Now you can pull down from the top to activate Spotlight Search. You've got your applications and you've also got folders obviously as well, which is all simple and well and good. But you can pull down from the top, and here you can activate, as you can see, your today, and you can also have notifications, which we can jump out of to today. Today isn't just today though, it's actually a whole load of widgets that you can tweak and edit and stuff, and that might just get a little bit confusing for some. Double tap without actually fully pressing the touch sensitive fingerprint scanner, and you actually bring the whole UI down really nicely so that you can cope with smaller hands despite the big screen. If you long press the actual home button, you will open up Siri, which is voice assistant. We didn't also mention you've got Cortana on here, also voice assistant, both good in their own ways. We do kind of prefer Cortana for a couple of reasons. If we were to double tap, we can open up our multitasking pane, and again in Windows that's achieved by a long press. So as you can see, core functionality is pretty comparable. Where they're going to differ is mainly app support. If you want the latest greatest applications, then Windows Phone won't have them, and if they do have them, it'll probably be a couple of months after they land on iOS. Sure, the basics are covered, Instagram, Facebook, Vine, etc., and you've got some pretty good third-party solutions. You can see we've got Cloud 6 for Dropbox here, because there's no official Dropbox client, whereas if you had iOS, you'd be covered for all of those. Has to be said, in day-to-day use, if you're not a heavy app user, you probably won't notice a difference. All the core ones like Skype, etc., WhatsApp run pretty smoothly, and with Spotify and a lot of other recent apps getting updates in light of Windows Phone 8.1 being launched, the whole experience has gotten significantly better. So hopefully that's given you an idea as to what you can expect as far as the apps go. As far as the cameras go, you've got an 8 megapixel sensor with no optical image stabilization, but you do have a great flash on here. You've got a 10 megapixel sensor with optical image stabilization on the Nokia Lumia Lumia. That suggests that the Nokia Lumia 830 is going to be better in low light, but we can't say that for sure. Again, this is a first impression side by side, not an in-depth one. What we can do though is open up their respective camera apps in order to illustrate some of the key differences, and we're only going to use the automatic camera apps. It's worth noting that iOS has opened up APIs that allow developers to create manual camera mode. So as you can see, we actually have focus rings here. We've got white balance, focus, ISO, and shutter speed. If we flip the macro focus to nearest focal range, we can actually pull in our iPhone and take a picture of the top of it. We can swipe that right out of the way and find out where our nearest focal point is. Take that picture, and that will have taken right there, nice and sharp. Bring the iPhone into frame. We can activate the camera from the lock screen pretty quickly by just dragging up. We can take a picture very quickly, and we can also do something super cool introduced in iOS 8, and that is change the exposure by just dragging up and down around the focal point. So we can re-tap the focal point in order to reset exposure. You can also see you've got a range of other shooting modes too. You've got full HD video, it takes square shots, it takes panorama shots, you can apply filters to your photos really quickly as well, and you can take slow-mo video at 240 frames per second, as well as time-lapse video. So there's lots of really cool stuff on both of these phones. The more manual fans might prefer the Nokia Lumia 830, although like we said, iOS 8 has opened up the APIs to allow for manual camera modes to be created by developers or camera applications. So we look forward to seeing more and more take advantage of those. Internals, Qualcomm Snapdragon 400 processor with 1 gig of RAM, by contrast to an Apple A8 processor with 1 gig of RAM. The A8's dual core, the Snapdragon's quad core, but don't let those numbers and words fool you. The A8 processor with its 64-bit architecture is gonna perform immensely. Games on here absolutely look the business. We've got Infinity Blade 3 we're playing for ages, Modern Combat 4, 5, etc. And Zen Garden showcases the new Metal graphics engine and does a really good job. As far as gaming on Windows Phone goes, you're not going to have the vast array of games. In fact, a lot of games will come through to here, but again, like with apps, they'll come a lot later. You do have big hitters from the likes of Asphalt, Modern Combat, etc. So if you just want a couple of games, you should be fine. But if you're a gaming fiend, then you will probably be better served with an iPhone. Expandable with 16 gig of onboard memory, non-expandable available with 16, 64 or 128 gigabytes. LTE on both of these devices, as well as Bluetooth, NFC, etc. Although there's wireless charging on the Nokia Lumia 830. As far as battery capacities go, I think it's an 1810 milliamp battery, around that mark. But on the Nokia Lumia, you've got a 2200 milliamp cell. With a slightly bigger screen though, we'd expect both to pack similar battery lives. We haven't tested the Lumia's battery just yet, but the iPhone will last a comfortable day, provided you're not going crazy with it. So that has been a comparison between a Nokia Lumia 830 and an iPhone 6. Hopefully you've enjoyed. If you've got any questions about either phone, fire them in the comments section below. And if you want us to try anything out ahead of our Lumia review, try anything out with the iPhone, fire that in the comments section too. We'll definitely be putting this camera through its paces, so make sure you stay tuned for a lot more on that. Thanks for watching.